Hi everyone, greetings and welcome to my channel, Take Control of Your Health. I'm Dr. Cori Stern. And if this is your first time watching, I want to extend a warm welcome to you. I would like you to take a look back at the other videos on this channel because everything that's on here has the sole purpose of helping you to improve your health and to not let the bad guys poison you and make you sick, weak, and stupid. And if you are a returning viewer, I want to thank you so much for all your support. If you haven't yet had a chance to subscribe, please hit the subscribe button. And most importantly, if you know somebody that you think would benefit from the information that we're presenting here, please share it with them. So I have a really special guest here today that I'm so excited about. I've been kind of stalking her for a little while. Her name is Dr. Sharnael Wolverton-Sehon.
Yes.
And I want her to actually talk a little bit about herself, give you a little bio, who she is, what she does, and then we'll get into today's topic, which is how your beliefs affect your health. So take it away, Doc.
Awesome. Thanks, Dr. Cori. I've been following you on Twitter too. And ever since you reached out, just kind of tracking with you. And it's been nice to kind of start to know a little bit about you and what you're doing and your work. It's very beautiful what you're doing and helping a lot of people. So glad to be here with you and all your viewers. And let's see what we can do to get people shifting in something positive and or holding the line if that's required as well. I'm assuming we're going to go in code like FDA, guidelines and like not make sure that we can keep the channel
please.
going.
Yes.
But my background, I've done quite a few different jobs. I've always felt like I would be called to service or ministry, actually, since a very young child. And I also felt really drawn to animals. So if someone had told me when I was little, like, you're going to be a naturopathic doctor, that wasn't on my top 1 million things that I thought that I would do, but that's kind of where it worked out. And actually, I absolutely adore doing this and love helping people, especially on a broad level. But I worked, I've done everything from waitressing to, sales and retail, and worked at a bank, did all the things, going through college and doing that kind of thing. And, but really wanted to be, I felt like I would be working and serving in some capacity for service as far as a spiritual level. And so the background or the denomination, I was a part of a church at the time, and the denomination that I was a part of actually frowned upon women being any type of leadership ministry at the time. It's changed a little bit in that denomination, but actually not really. And so, but I went to like a Bible school, and my undergraduate ended up being in kinesiology because I was told that, you can't major in religious education because you don't have the body parts. And so, maybe you can marry a nice pastor or do something, in missions, long distance. So it's completely fine to have different body parts in ministry in China or Europe or Africa, but apparently at that time it wasn't excited here. So, which is really interesting logic. But so I thought I was going to be a vet for like a minute until I actually worked at a vet and had to see animals suffering and being put down for no reason, and just not good with being able to watch animals have to do that. I thought for a second I'll be in pet therapy instead, but that isn't really a job. I mean, it's a great idea, but I haven't found a way to get paid to do that yet. So, but I heard about it and I was like, that's what I'll be. I'll be a pet therapist and I'll bring animals to like nursing homes and stuff, which I did, and helped with children and, horses and children and did stuff like that. But I did not at the time, this is 20 years ago, there wasn't an actual, like, you get paid $60,000 to live on animals all day long. I was like, can we just make that job? Or 80,000 or 100,000, why stop at 60? But so I did the undergraduate that was closest to my heart, which is health, and also had the least amount of math. And
same here.
I love code, and I love, I'm a geek when it comes to a lot of stuff with quantum physics, neuroscience, the body. I'm not a big fan of word problems. And that's another story. But so I did that, kind of still really in the hopes that I would land some spiritual job, whether it was, in my frame of mind, the only way I knew to do that in that capacity was through a church at that time. And little did I know that that wasn't the avenue that I would be in at all. But so I actually did end up going, I worked in cardiac rehab, I worked as a rec therapy and a psych ward, worked with children with eating disorders. I've done so many things. And, it's interesting, you get a little bit of a lot of things, and you build, and I have been able to use every single thing that I did for where I am now. I mean, we can all say that. It's like sometimes when you're in the journey, and this is really important for somebody out there, you may have this expectation of where you're supposed to be, and you're so concentrating on where you're supposed to be that you're not even enjoying where you are, and realizing that all of this is very important. Each part, every door, all the things. So if that's you out there, like, please just enjoy the ride and understand that you will use everything of where you are, even in the crisis that's going on, quote, crisis of 2020. Like, this is for you. We are in a, if we can look at everything being for us instead of happening to us, then that will shift the energy right away and just being more fluid. But so I did end up leaving that particular denomination, and even really the kind of the whole organized church situation, and was working more in some fluid, spiritual type church, more open church places, and was doing conference itinerant work. And I did that about 20 years. I would just teach all over. I've been to 44 countries and worked a lot with different churches. And I would see it's about 2000, started feeling sick. I was having some health issues, and that went on for about a decade of me just trying to discover how to get well, and wasn't having a whole lot of luck. I had went a very Western mindset avenue because that's all I knew, and everything else, whatever. And how it is, it's like you get to that point where everything hasn't worked, and you get desperate, and you start looking for other alternatives. And I had kind of given up hope, really, and was just like, okay, whatever, I guess this is just how it's going to be. And then someone told me about a doctor who is an MD, and I was actually teaching a dreams and visions course at a workshop, and someone kept referring me to this guy and going, I really think he can help you. Don't you think you would really gel with him? He's all about the frequencies and the neuroscience and the biofield, and some of that was new to me, and some of it was like, whatever, but he ended up being a real key for me, and he still is. He's someone that I really look up to. And of course that led me to several other doctors who are kind of in that similar vein of, high technology, frequencies, bringing the vibration up, also in with a marriage of natural health and making good choices, and what you're putting in your body, what you're eating, what you're drinking, what you're thinking about, what you're talking about, who you're hanging out with. Like, everything is integration. And the word integrity is really interesting because it comes from integration. When we have integrity, then we are very integrated, and integrated is not just physical, mental, spiritual. It's just a combination of all. And I think especially in America, and maybe even overseas now, because I lived in Europe when I was young, and then I went back in college. I went to the University of London, and I've been there many places all over the all over the countries. And it used to be like, if you walked around, you could tell who were the Americans because they were the ones that were more overweight and not having as much, health stuff going on, but or not as healthy. Now, when you go visit, it's pretty much been like there's McDonald's everywhere. There's, everyone has kind of got the Americanized diet in a lot of places that I've revisited. Now, you can't really tell the difference when you're seeing people anymore. Like I said, you could really identify, oh, they're American, no judgment. I'm just saying, and so when I ended up feeling like through a series of events, feeling to go back to school. I found my own way out. I reverse engineered what I had done to myself over the years and was able to get back to that balance and help myself. And when I would go back to these conferences where I've been teaching on spiritual things, some of these places where like I'd go every year in the first week of September and I'd see the same people. We do a big conference, some of the speakers were the same. You kind of get this vein of people that you kind of tour with or do things with over and over and over again, or, it mixes up, and then also the same people who host different things, and so when they're seeing the difference in me, and some of them didn't even recognize. I mean, there was a couple of times I went to California and literally stood in the back and just watched a friend of mine who was teaching. I came in mid-conference, and one of the speakers was standing in the back and another one was speaking in their mid-conference. And I just stood there and I was like, watching, and kind of was like, hey, Graham. And he looked over and like, who are you? And turns out he didn't recognize me.
Wow.
Like because I had dropped 80 pounds in a 16-week period. And, my skin changed, my hair, everything, my whole being was different. And the same thing happened when I was I went to Amsterdam and was doing a conference there, and I've been there several times. I walk in the back, I came up through the registration, got my suitcases. I'd just been dropped off with a taxi. And I'm like, hey, I'm here. And the people behind the desk were like, okay, ma'am, here you could register, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, hi, it's me, and they're like, no, we're going to need you to register. And I'm like, I'm the speaker, like me, you've seen me for years. And they're like, oh my God, so when that was happening everywhere I was going back, they were like, what did you do? You seem so happy. You seem so, different. And I was a different person. I had different cells, I had moved out a lot of things. And, they were kind of like, can you teach on that? Because there's a lot going on in the world, and there wasn't a whole lot of education on this kind of stuff, at least in where my circles back then. This is, 10, 15 years ago. So I kind of tranced over to, just saying, hey, you can be spiritual all day long, but you also have to make physical choices, like put down the cake, stop drinking the soda, like, maybe not eat McDonald's for the fourth time today, just normal logic, but where, we've kind of been programmed with commercials and all the things to take all these shortcuts, and it's just so cool and it's totally fine. And then even doctors and commercials of way back then was like, smoking pregnant woman, doctors suggest this cigarette is the best one for you. And I mean, we've come a long way, but in some ways we haven't really gone very far at all.
Some ways it's worse.
Yeah. With the V's and the commercials in between stuff, it's just like lots of pharmakia, and pharmakia by definition is witchcraft. It comes from that word. And so I did teach a lot on that. And what happened is so many people had so many questions, and they were coming to me with things that I had not been schooled in. And I mean, my background wasn't any of these things they were talking about. And so I was like, you know what, I think I need to go back to school. And it was like totally off the radar. Like I was just like, me going back to school, I thought I would get my doctorate. I just always thought I would be a doctor, but I thought it was going to be in divinity. And, I was really loved the spiritual side of things. I could just study that all day, and it really makes me happy. But I felt like I had a few things that happened. I don't know where you are on like spiritual synchronicities and stuff, but I thought, oh my gosh, I just want to help people. My heart would just really, and I was on the plane. And I was literally thought to myself, do you really want me to go back to school and be an ND, God? Like, that's what came in my mind. And I look out the window and there was these little like cone things on the tarmac of the airport that I was at. And literally one had ND and had an arrow pointing in the direction that I was going on the side. I was like, oh
That's
my
amazing.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah. So stuff like that. I mean, I had a few of those where I was just like, so clear. This is the way. This is the way. This is the way. So I did. It seemed counter, but I went back to school and I thought, oh, I'm going to learn all this stuff. I'm going to be able to help a lot of people everywhere I go with conferences. It turned out that I got an invitation to start doing some medical conferences and speaking with some people on a medical playing field. And at first I was like, no, because I didn't see myself, that person. It's funny how beliefs and all that, like you said, can be,
Right.
and I was like, oh, I'm not smart like those people. And those, just like, what am I going to have to say? They're not going to care about what I think and what I'm, and that's not spiritual, is it? And it's just like, oh, come on, get over yourself, go help people, So I started doing that. And then it was sort of like a mixture kind of thing where we're seeing a lot of just like consciousness type conferences and things like that, where it is like the marriage of integration of all the things, both east, west, north, south, like let's learn it all and let's just be who we're supposed to be and be the best that we can. And of course, everything's moved online. I had done TV in the spiritual arenas for about 3 years. And I loved it. And that was a weird thing that ended when I stopped kind of going in that direction. But we just started our True TV here online with a podcast this year, really. Just because it's like, okay, how can I be most effective to as many people possible? Because I do remote scanning. I do one-on-ones. I still do. I even had a clinic for a little while. And I love seeing people, and I love the conference setting where before and after I could sit at a table and sign books and talk to people and answer questions and love on people and hug them and look in their eyes. But with everything that's gone down, obviously we're not in any capacity to do that right now, unfortunately, which is wrong. And, it's like, okay, what's another way without having a one-on-one answering the same questions over and over and over, as you probably get with your clients. There's usually a huge theme. It's like people with energy, weight loss, overall sleeping, hormones, there's some major categories that are pretty much like a thread of everyone. And instead of just saying it over and over and over, I started making videos, and just so people would call, or if they'd email and say, hey, what do you do about this? I'd be like, hey, watch my video on that. Or it was a very simple thing to kind of keep my time to focus
Efficient.
on. Yeah. So that kind of went that away. And now we're just doing live podcasts quite a bit and interviewing other people too. I like to have people who are very diverse, not just about like health and what have you, but we go into things like probably more controversial stuff, whether it's politics. And I mean, that's a big biggie for me. I know it has been the last couple of decades anyway. And then things like, the consciousness, vibrations, frequency, technology, technology that hasn't been declassed yet, things having to do with full disclosure, UFOs, all the things, because things that probably everyone would think is quote conspiracy theory isn't so much. It's more like facts that maybe people don't really know about. So I'm a kind of a mixed bag of a lot of different stuff. And that's where I'm at. I was just, helping people to be their best version of themselves, whether it's one-on-one consultations that I do over the phone and through remote scanning mixed with intuition and frequencies. We do send frequencies. And then physical homework of, hey, do a keto diet, give a liver cleanse, get out in the sunshine, maybe put the phone down for, at least 20 minutes in a 24-hour period. Get some sleep, that stop smoking, stuff like that.
Drink
So,
water.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So, and I know that you're doing these things too. This is what you're all about. And that's why I was just like, that was an easy yes. Yep, I'm on board. I love what you're doing. And so I know that was a long answer, but that's where I'm at.
No, thank you so much for sharing that. I didn't know any of those things about you. I've watched some of your videos, but you didn't really talk that much about yourself. And we have a lot in common. Our story has a lot in common, a lot. So I can really identify with you, and including where my body fell apart and I looked for solutions, and God led me to the solution, which ended up being what I do for a living. So totally can identify. The difference was that I didn't look sick. I just felt horrible, but you couldn't tell if you looked at me. I definitely look healthier now though. So I'm about to turn, I was going to say 47, but no, I'm about to turn 58.
Wow.
And, I'm so much healthier now than I was 10 years ago or 20 years ago, or even, 40 years ago.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
Don't you love it?
Yeah, no, I mean, I want to, this was my goal was to live as long as I could and be as healthy as I could be. I have a son with a rare genetic disorder, and I want to be around for him as long as I possibly can. He still lives with me. So
that's a big task that's huge. Wow. Kudos to you. And also, going back to what you just said, living as long as you can. Everyone talks about like long life, but if you're long life, but it's like debilitating and you're in pain the whole time. I mean, and not to mention, in the spiritual arenas, you get, these people who have purpose, they're here for a reason. Everyone has this, underlining current of like, this is the thing I got to do. I got to do something. But if you don't feel well and you're in bed and you're having all these side effects, and just, it can be very challenging to be the sharpest version of you, if you feel bad, if you feel debilitated or paralyzed or tired or,
absolutely. People cannot fulfill their purpose. They cannot handle life, right? So life always brings stress. That's just how it is. That's normal. Even joyful situations can be perceived as stressful. And if you're healthy, you can deal with it. You can go with the flow. You can, do what you got to do. But when you're making poor choices for your body, you can't. That's all. It comes down to that. You fall apart, you unravel. So this is what I talk about all the time, because I have had a really stressful life. I had a terrible childhood, just absolutely abominable childhood. And it never really ended, because then I, gave birth to my son, and he had 18 major surgeries. And then my mom got really, really sick, and I had to, take care of her, and she passed away last year. And there's always something, right? But because I'm so healthy and I don't have nutritional deficiencies, I can do it. I'm not saying it's fun, but I can do it. I can do it, and I have plenty left over to help other people and, fulfill my purpose, as you were just saying. So that's really the thing that people don't fully understand, is that their beliefs drive their choices. And when we're talking about choices, we're talking about what you choose to eat, what the habits that you mentioned earlier, getting enough sleep, and getting some sunshine and getting some exercise, all of those things. Your beliefs drive what you choose, but people don't examine their beliefs. What's the saying? You don't know what you don't know. So there
Right.
are so many people that have awareness of things outside of themselves. Like, so maybe they're aware of the political situation in our country right now, and they're studying it and they're following it, but they're not aware of their own body. They're not making a connection between what, how did you, where did you get the data that, let's say that it's a good idea to drink Tropicana orange juice to prevent colds? Where did that come from?
Yes, and it's mostly sugar, right? I mean, so like
It's mostly
99%.
sugar, and there's other garbage in it too.
Right.
There's actually chemicals in it.
Yeah.
It actually sits in a vat for over a year before it ends up on the store shelf. It's really disgusting.
Wow.
Yeah, not to mention that, and at least in this country now, and as you were mentioning earlier, many other countries are following suit. There's not really very much nutrients left in
In the food.
because there's no nutrients in the soil. The soil
Right.
is
And the enzymes and all the stuff that's deficient, and they keep
exactly.
using the same soil over and over instead of giving it a rest like they're supposed to.
And putting artificial fertilizer, putting petroleum-based fertilizer in, which actually leaches the nutrients in the soil and makes it toxic.
Pesticides, herbicides, all the things. Yeah.
Right, glyphosate. So the fact is that drinking orange juice, Tropicana orange juice, is not going to prevent colds. But people just they become so let's say attached. They become so attached to these beliefs. And so just using that as a silly example, where did that belief come from originally? Likely it could have been your mom, it could have been in school, but most likely it was a commercial for Tropicana orange juice, right?
Well, even like the cereal, and the cereal commercials with cartoons and,
Yes.
like Pine Sol, for me, my mom used Pine Sol and that just smelled like home. So when I moved away, you just, there's things that you just do out of habit,
Yes.
after programming.
Right.
That, and then there's another level of programming too. Like, like you said, there's always something, it's like, I can relate to what you're saying. And also I've been able to look at things differently now, where if we have the idea or the mindset that we'll never catch a break and that things are just hard and they're not fun, cancel clear, it's like, we set up, there's a physical response inside of the body too. Like even our conscious language is a reflection of, or our language is a reflection of our thoughts and our feelings. And you can have the program, like, I would go through whatever situation and like something bad would happen, and I would call a certain family member that I wanted to, I don't know, I guess pout in or just have someone to
vent, complain, right?
Yeah. And who would vibe with me where I was at in that low place. And I would call and go, oh my God, this happened now. And that person would say, there's always something. And they didn't mean it in a positive way, like there's always something, and now with that piece of just that understanding is if that's your expectation and that's your program, then you will create that, because the biofield is creative and it contains everything that we're thinking, talking about, and feeling. And so that goes out and radiates, and then also magnetizes back in. So then you keep setting yourself up, cancel clear, for more things that give you, there's always something in the negative, instead of, how about there's always something, like, meaning like it'll work out. Like, everything works out for me. Like miracles follow me everywhere I go. I'm a miracle magnet, so when something happens, if we have the perception of, like, well, I wonder how God's going to get, work this out for me. There's going to be some way that this is going to be great. And, I know that many people here, and you yourself have probably had situations, and this one is coming to me right now. When I was first learning how to drive, I was supposed to be somewhere, and I was late. I don't like being late because it's very important to be on time. and even on a chemical, physical level, neuroscience level. But because we make commitments, then our brain registers that commitment. And when you lie, then there's a chemical response and it sends your immunity down. But anyway, so I was at, on my way to go meet someone, and I realized I needed gasoline, and I knew I had to get to the get some gasoline, and then get where I was supposed to be and be on time. And when I got to this part where there was like a train came, and it was a long train, and it was dark, and I was waiting, and I was just so like stressed. I was just like, completely like, I don't like being late. And this is pre cell phones. Mm-hmm. So it's not like I can call and let them know, like, I'm going to be, 10 extra minutes or 15 or 30. I was already running a little bit late, and here. And so I'm just mad, and I'm like, seriously. And I'm like getting myself all out of alignment, and I'm just freaking out. And I'm like, oh my God. And all the worst case scenarios of what they're going to think, and just and I'm going to miss this event. And anyway, I finally do make it to the gas station. And when I do, there's police everywhere. There's an ambulance, there's police. And I kind of like pull up, and, the cops are kind of like, hey, no. Turns out there was a shooting.
Oh, wow.
10 minutes prior.
So you would have been dead.
I don't even know if I would be here.
Right.
But that train saved my life.
Mm.
And I obviously wasn't sitting there going, oh, well, thank God for the train, because I'm not going to get shot,
Right.
But, if we can see every little thing like that as a opportunity to just pivot and go, well, I wonder what God's doing here, or I wonder why this happened. Or I'm so glad God always has my back. God meaning inside of me and my DNA, is because we're creating these things to, whether it's out of protection or sovereignty or love. When we have love seeping out into the field, then love shows up.
Comes back. Yep.
And, so that was a loving thing that happened, although my reaction to it wasn't good. And so I'm learning better to kind of perceive everything works for me, and that whole mindset, because beliefs, like you said, to be alive in something, believe, that affects every cell in the body. And you can actually think something, but talk about something else. Yes. Or you can think something and feel a different way. Like you can go, I'm really, really sad about this, but you're telling everyone, I'm good. And that there's a disconnect there, and it's actually causes split energy, which causes chaotic things to happen because you're not in alignment. You're not living your truth. And so there's a lot to this. My book is called The Science of Miracles, and it goes into, how to shift every part of, whether it's conscious language, what you're thinking, feeling, talking about, your signature DNA, because we all have a signature DNA that is significant to only you, a unique, energetic print, stamp of who you are. And then that does project into the field that makes you completely different from anything on the entire universe. So the mixture of what we're thinking, talking about, feeling, as well as that signature DNA, is what goes out into the field. And, sometimes we're thinking about everything works out for me, and having an abundance mindset and feeling abundant and all of those things. But yet you may have things that are showing up that are like, why does this keep happening? And it's not a positive experience. And you're like, I'm positive. I'm always nice to people. I have good integrity. I always show up on time. I always pay my bills. I never do anything bad to anyone else. And then you're still having stuff happen, cancel, clear. That's when we need to look at the DNA. That's when we need to say, okay, what was going on with grandma? Maybe she came in with a poverty thing, or maybe she had bad things happen. No judgment against her. But those experiences can affect the signature code. And then you incarnate into that, and you're just like, la, 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 doing your thing. And then there's this undercurrent of code that's going out that you're not even conscious of. And so the good news is epigenetics is real. We can change the DNA. We can clear all this out, and we can get clearer and clearer and clearer and clearer until we are that reflection of source code. And that's the goal of everything, is to be love. That is the highest frequency of all, who is source, and to start generating miraculous moments to moments to moments to moments to moments to moments to moments, as we are love now, and keep that timeline. So, and then there's the whole collective aspect where it's like, I may be thinking this, but you're thinking something completely polarized opposite. And so that gives a mixed energy, right? As whether it's partnership or friends or the collective on the whole planet. And so now that's what we're really seeing right now, is there's a timeline war, there's an information war, there's AI involved, there's a lot of things that are going, into the mix of how the outcome can be. And I'm just hoping that if enough of us are awake enough to really do the work, that there is a tipping point where evil cannot keep going without any consequence. And that if people would just stand up and remember their power, remember their sovereignty, and remember their choices, and be aware that we have the technology and the DNA. We can resurrect, we can heal, we can transport, we can remote view, remote heal, we can, send messages to other people across the world and say, hey, call me, and people can get the messages. And this is how we're made. So,
well, that's the exact, you made the exact point that, and I'm glad that you said that, because one of the things that I have found is that when you clean the body up, it's easier for you to be able to create the thoughts that you want and need to create. And that the more of us that do that clean our body up, and then we can actually focus on waking up in other areas. That's part of what needs to happen.
It's very important.
It's more difficult. It's much more difficult to, let's say, focus on your purpose, be in alignment all the time, create the thoughts that are serving you well when you don't feel good, or when you're poisoning yourself on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And that's really why I think this is so important. That's why I'm push this so hard.
Well, and even like you mentioned, chemicals and poison, and even parasites, fungus, like there's a frequency to all of that, frequency to alcohol, frequency to cigarettes. Right. So as we entertain those things, if we engage in those things, then we're lowering our vibration, which causes lower vibrations to find us. We attract it, we magnetize it. And also entities really love low vibration. That's where they hang out, and they can attach to the field. And then you want to talk about a shit show. Sorry, but I'm just saying, like, so we, even doing a parasite cleanse, parasites are the energy of victim. Mm-hmm. So if they're or fungus, that is something that's trying to take over the host.
And by the way, they love sugar. So if you're eating a high sugar diet, you're feeding them.
Yeah. And so what is victim energy? Victim energy goes out into the field and basically sends up a signal. Hey, come get me. Take advantage, cancel, clear. Mm-hmm. So if we can be on the other side, look, my cat is wanting to be in the show here.
That's fine. Fine with me. I love animals as much as you do.
By the way, cats purr on 157 megahertz. So we're cool. 67 on a healthy adult day, but when they purr, they're really coming to help us out. Like they do a lot with us. So I'm a foster mom.
I know. That's awesome. My massage therapist has an amazing cat that just, as soon as I lay down on the massage table, he just climbs on my back and he lays there and he helps out with the massage. I love it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're very intuitive, and they're just, and their job is to help morph our negative energies. They take it on, actually, unfortunately. So a lot of times if I'm working with a client and they'll come in with an animal situation, I'll say, okay, what's going on with you? Because they're going to reflect
Yes.
the owner every time.
100%.
Every time.
By the way, just want to mention, I had a holistic vet on my channel a few videos back. If he was awesome. I want to take a look at that. And I also studied something called zoopharmaconasi. Have you heard of that?
Oh no, but it sounds like something I would love.
I think you would love it. It's self-selection. Animals can self-select what they need for healing. And I took
like people.
Right. And but animals are really, really intuitive. And in this course, she had me just put out, I have 2 dogs, and she had me put out various bowls with different substances and just watch the dogs and see what they went to, but also using essential oils to heal animals. And a lot of people think that essential oils are not good for animals, and that is not true. You just have to know how to use them, because obviously their sense of smell is much more sensitive. But
yeah, and most of the essential oils out there are complete garbage. So make sure you're having the right company, because the FDA guidelines right now are that if 3 drops of an oil is in a bottle, they can label it 100% organic, therapeutic grade A, whatever, because they're not saying that the entire bottle contains.
Is that Young 100%? Living? That's what I used to.
Yes, yes. So basically, they're tricking us, and you can't look, and like if you go to the juice like Tropicana, you can actually look on the back and go, oh, here are the ingredients, and oh no, there's chemicals and there's sugar in it, and it's really only like 2% juice. Right. We don't do that with the oils. Unfortunately, the FDA doesn't protect us to say, oh, there's propylene glycol in here, and there's all these fillers and things to help with extension of life. And if you're using a good company, then you won't have to worry about expiration.
That's why, do your research. Don't make assumptions. Don't believe necessarily what you're being told, because people just do that all the time. Oh, I'm using blah, blah, blah makeup because it's better. Well, who told you it was better? Where did you get that from? Go on the Environmental Working Group website, look up, do a pretty good job giving you toxic ingredients. That's ewg.org. I can actually put a link to that on this video. And I want to put a link to your book as well, if people want to get your book.
That'd be great.
Yeah. And so just the woman that teaches the zoopharmaconasi, she makes her own oils. I bought a kit from her. They seemed really good. And by the way, my dogs love peppermint. It just totally calms them down. If they get a mosquito bite, I just open the bottle and just hold it there, and they're just like chill.
Awesome. Yeah. And the guidelines, FDA guidelines, we're not allowed to say what oils do what and all of that. But do your research, you guys, and look into what's out there. They've scrubbed a lot off the internet. And they've actually taken so many books out. They did a huge book burning over the last 10 years, where they've actually even come to some of these conferences that I've been at and literally just came and took the books off. The FDA came and said, you have to reprint this. You can't say anything cures anything. Which, I know. It sucks because it's the truth,
Well, I teach. I was traveling around the US teaching, and we got to a point where there were so many things that I wasn't allowed to say that it was like, what am I even doing?
What can I say?
Right. I'll just stand here and look at people.
This is an oil. That's what we can say. It's like, now go study, go figure it out.
But I'm kind of a rebel. So I just did it anyway and took my chances. So I need to get information to people. That's what I do. So anyway, Doc, I know that you needed to end around now. It's too time. You told me it was time, yeah?
Yes, I have another podcast here in a few minutes, but you are awesome.
Thank you so much. So are you. Well, maybe we'll do this again another time.
I would love that. I would love that. And anyone who, if you're looking for me, my website is swiftfire.org. It's swift as in quickfire.org. I'm on like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. You know, I'd love to have you guys. Like I mentioned earlier, I love conferences because I really do like hugs and real people and looking in people's eyes and hearing their stories. So to get a little version of that, I know a little inbox or a DM and just go like, hey, I saw your show and, you know, I just want to say hi, then I can like connect better with your profile picture and say, I love you and send you good vibes. And it's just my little way to connect with people. So I'd love to hear any feedback. And I'm really believing that even with this show, with every show that I do, I always have the intent for miracles. And so what I'm seeing a lot of different areas of upgrades here, especially with lower back issues, sleep issues. Let me see here. There's a lot of people that seem to be really needing support in the liver. And I think that some things are going to really shift.
So funny that you say that, because in the past 3 weeks, everybody showing up in my office, I'm finding liver.
Really?
Yes. I don't know what's going on with that. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I am really believing that anyone who's watching this is going to have some miraculous responses here, even in dreams. Seeing a lot of opportunities for dreams. So if you guys are not dreamers, watch out. You might be dreaming. Put a notebook next to your bed and actually be aware and to have that expectation. God's going to give you some creative ideas and some things in your sleep, in your night season. So, be aware. And I would love to hear your miracles. I want to hear all your good reports of whether it was a physical or emotional or a dream or whatever. Please do contact me and just say, hey, that was me. This happened and I'm good. And thanks a lot. And actually see, there's 2 or 3 people even with partnership issues, but there's going to be some things that just really easily, quickly dissolve. Like right now, there's some misunderstandings and they're just going to completely dissipate, and there's going to be forgiveness and grace and restoration. So
wow, that was amazing. I just felt your healing energy coming at me.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, good. Awesome. I thank you for doing what you're doing and being a light, and just keep doing the good work and shining bright. And I'm so thankful to find you and to meet up with you. And I do hope we'll see you around. I mean, like I said, I see you on Twitter and I'll like comment every now and then or whatever, but let's just definitely keep in touch.
Yes, for sure. I would love that. Thank you.
All right. Have a great day. Okay.
You
bye-bye.
too. Bye.